You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Here's your hosts, Jeremy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. This is episode 375 of the podcast. My name is Jeremy Deemer and I'll be your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin. He joins us high atop Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
It's a beautiful night for a game.
It is warm in Chicago for the first time.
But I'm here with you
podcasted.
instead.
Yeah, we will choosing to podcast in lieu of going to the game, but you'll make that up tomorrow. You'll be at the game
Yes.
on the Tuesday night. It was a beautiful weekend. I was in New York, so I didn't get to catch any of the games while I was out there, but can confirm it was beautiful weather. We will talk about the games that the Cubs had in New York. We'll talk about the series in Chicago. And to help us talk about all the things the week that was, the news, preview the week that will be, longtime friend of the podcast. You know him from his stand-up comedy, from his other podcasts, his former Cubs podcast, and his many appearances here on this podcast, of course. Kevin McCaffrey, thanks for taking time out to talk Cubs with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I can podcast fast if Pat wants to get to this game. I can I can throw it into, we can do a range shortened version and get him out there. But yeah, thank you for having me back. It's nice to see you guys here.
Too bad it's not a great week to talk about. Every week so far has been a winning week, a 500 week against tough teams.
Right. I mean, it's still a week of things to talk about, at least. There, especially coming off the last few years we had, as you guys know, with your 375 episodes, there are plenty of times that are both bad and nothing, and to talk about wise. And this time was like, okay, yeah, first time it hasn't been actively good in terms of results in a while, but not an abject disaster, Ryan Pressly notwithstanding. And, there's still stuff going on. So still pretty good, relatively speaking.
We'll get through some of those issues, concerns, things we see for this team as we walk through the week. What a difference a week makes. I mean, now we are looking at still the first place Chicago Cubs at 23-18, but now only a game ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals of all teams, 3 ahead
who
of the
I heard
Birds.
weren't trying.
They weren't trying
and
hanging around above 500. But the 2-4 week started at home against San Francisco, where the Cubs lost 2 of 3 games. Obviously, the most frustrating one being the 11th inning loss, where you mentioned Ryan Pressly just absolutely imploded in extra innings, Pat.
Yeah, guess which game I went to this week?
The whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, it was wonderful. I just couldn't physically get out fast enough in the 11th because he was giving up the hit so quickly and they were leaving him in. So it was a frustrating game on a number of fronts. I mean, obviously the final score is not indicative of how the game went, but it was a game where the Cubs had a chance. They fell behind early, 4-0. We talk about how the Cubs often lose games they should win, or we feel like they could have won. They let them slip away, but it's rare that the Cubs sneak a win out from somebody where they had no business winning the game. And I feel like this week is another example of that, right? Like, we can get into the Mets series later, but they deserve the losses they got. They deserve the wins they got, I think, except for this game, despite being down 4-0 early. It did feel like the Cubs were going to sneak out a win against a team. And it would have been, after winning the first game pretty handily, it would have guaranteed that they won the series. And I think it would have set a different tempo for the week had they done it. After being down 4-0, the Cubs came back and were only down 5-3 headed into the 9th. We felt like there was some hope. There were especially felt like that after Pete Crow-Armstrong drew a rare walk, and which strung a string of events together involving Carson Kelly, the next Babe Ruth, who also, of course, was walked because of his power. And when Justin Turner got a base hit and scored a run, we really felt good about that. And then, of course, Kyle Tucker, and this is what star players do, right? Comes on with 2 outs and guy on third base, gets a base hit, ties the game. only for Suzuki to strike out fairly meekly with a chance to win the game in the ninth inning. But okay, fine. I'll take the 2 runs in the ninth and we'll go to extras, right? 10th inning, the Cubs pitch masterfully. Top of the 10th. It was great. It was a 1-2-3. Well, I guess there's a walk in there, but basically a 1-2-3 inning.
That was Hodge, right?
Porter Hodge. Yeah. Hodge
right.
looked good.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get into the bottom of the ninth and you feel pretty good because you're at home. It's a tie game. Suzuki starts on second base as a reward for his meek strikeout the inning before. And then the first batter up is Michael Busch, who draws a walk. Hoerner flies out, but moves Suzuki to third. Busch goes to second. So you've got second and third with 1 out. Pete Crow-Armstrong at the plate. And it felt like, and the crowd is going crazy now, right? And it just felt like the moment was a little bit too big for Pete at the time. He ended up striking out on 4 pitches, not 3, but he was swinging at everything. He was just, you could tell that he wanted to make it. He wanted to win the game by 3 runs.
In a situation where you need contact, seeing PCA at the plate
third,
is
right? So with second and third, that there's no double play chance, right? So and I thought to myself, he might be the worst batter among the good hitters the Cubs have to come up in a situation like this. And I turned to my friends that I was with, and I said, I know it's going to sound crazy, but with Suzuki at third and Busch at second, I think if I were the Cubs, I might just lay a bunt down the first base line and see what happens. Because I thought, if he could do that, I think we would have won the game. I think Suzuki would have made it home. They were not playing for the bunt, obviously. You can't really, with second and third, you can't have your first and third baseman, playing 40 feet from home plate. And instead he struck out. And then, unfortunately, after him, Swanson lined out to third base, and that was the end of the inning. And then we saw the Cubs implode in the next inning in the 11th. The air was kind of out of the stadium after that. And you're like, on the one hand, you're like, well, we'll shake it off. It's still a tie game. On the other hand, doom and gloom Cub fans, such as myself, have been around for a while, know damn well what was going to happen. I mean, there's no way we're going to win the game at that point, right? And sure enough, I didn't think we'd lose it quite as badly as we did, but it was just a bloodbath. Ryan Presley came in again. The complaint against him is he can't strike anybody out, and that held true. He could not, but he gave up 7 runs in an extra inning, and then the Cubs ended up giving 2 more. And I think he set an all-time. What was the all-time MLB record for most runs allowed by a pitcher in extra innings, and also recording a loss or something ridiculous.
With no outs too, right?
With no outs.
That was
yeah,
because that was the trick there.
With no outs,
sneak one in there somehow, just law of averages. But it was, and I think, like you said, after the 2 chances to end it, when the Cubs did have, whatever momentum exists in baseball, like whatever momentum there was with the Cubs there. And after both Seiya and PCA didn't come through, it did feel like, well, that was probably it, right? Like you just don't get that many shots to end it that easily. And I also thought maybe like the squeeze to some degree would be in play there with PCA too, because it's sort of like, I mean, I guess it's also, I feel like PCA has been putting the ball in the air a decent amount when he
puts the ball off his bat.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand not going for the squeeze there, but I definitely, I was thinking the same way as you there.
It's like Baez, he's so fast that it freaks out the fielders, even if they know that they have to go to play on the play. It's just seeing him fly by like that, just for whatever reason, is disconcerting. And, worst case scenario, they get Suzuki out at home and the Cubs have first and third, and Pete probably steals second, and then you still have 1 out and man in third base. Like, I mean, it gives you another opportunity with, frankly, who knew, but your hottest hitter at the time, Dansby Swanson, up at the plate, who's been making really good contacts. So, anyway,
I think also with PCA, it's weird. Sort of, I know he got his first little peek at the leadoff thing, which especially for like traditional baseball. My brain, I think, has done a good job modernizing to baseball and what's important now, but it is still traditional when it comes to like lineup construction. I like fast center fielders hitting first. I'm just built that way, even if it doesn't make sense. But watching the bunts PCA has tried to lay down this year, it seems like he isn't good at it yet, I don't think. And some guys just aren't. He's had one or two that were fine, but I feel like and this may just be more anecdotal, I haven't seen the stats, but it doesn't seem like he's a particularly good bunter,
He's not much of a walker or pitch taker either.
Yes.
That was Jeremy and I talked a lot about that last year with PCA, and our big concern with him as a hitter in general, even after the hot stretch he had in July and August, in September, he kind of cooled off a decent amount. And obviously early in the year, he was, pretty brutal. But our concern was always that how is this going to be sustainable? This batting average on balls in play is so sustainable when he swings and misses so much, and he swings it, and he swings and hits the ball. But I mean, he's constantly swinging is the bottom line, and when he makes good contact, especially this year, like you said, when he hits fly balls, which he's done at a higher rate than he had in the past, that works out. When you're super fast, you can even hit a ground ball and still beat one out. We've seen him do that a couple of times too. Mm-hmm. But from a leadoff hitter, I think he swung at about 80% of the pitches he saw as a leadoff hitter this week. It's just probably a little bit more than you prefer. You just want to, maybe that's just the traditionalist model, but the rest of the players just kind of want to see what the pitcher has, and maybe don't swing it and either miss or get a hit on the first pitch every single time.
And with PCA hitting leadoff, I am curious what that does to the running strategy. Like right now, it's every time he's on, he runs. But hitting in front of Tucker, how less aggressive will they be with him on the bases, knowing that Tucker is who he is and has been this season, just hitting home runs, getting the big hits, being a power hitter that we hoped he'd be as we watch him be just a stud.
Yeah, I think that's a great concern too, because I think it just points to PCA right now works a lot better as like, I don't know, a 6 hitter or something, where when he does, he can clean up dudes who are getting on base in front of him with the amount of surprising power he's shown, which is very fun. But also, the like get on base and run all the time. I think you want to put the pressure. I think that really helps the bottom of this lineup, right? When you get a guy who can put the pressure on the other defense that way, have them thinking about him when you have the bottom of the order coming up, and make it a little easier for those guys to knock him in.
It actually reminds me of sort of an Ian Happ appreciation moment when you think of how Happ has so seamlessly transitioned himself into a leadoff hitter. He wasn't really somebody we thought of when he came up from the minors as a leadoff hitter per se, but he's really done a great job, I think, moving into that role and being successful at it, taking a lot of pitches, drawing a lot of walks, which he does really well, and having him out for a couple days. Hopefully he's healthy now and back, but having him out for a couple days reminded me of how much we sort of take him for granted, because he doesn't seem to really do anything flashy. He gets his numbers every year, and that's great. But having guys who get their numbers in a lineup like this is really important, because you've got so many guys who are good in this lineup now that it really, I think, is just an added benefit. I mean, he's got 24 walks and 187 plate appearances. That's kind of a nice thing you like to see from your leadoff hitter with a nice on base percentage, and I think he benefits from having Tucker behind him a lot too. So
big time. It is amazing how quiet and how overlooked Ian Happ is when you also break down that, like, he's a baseball player who has his own podcast, he has his own coffee. Right. Like, he has, if you put it on paper, it looks like it's superstar stuff, or it's like at least very public and talked about stuff. But he is, I mean, at this point is, maybe I'm missing something. He's the longest tenured Cub we have right now. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, he's in his 9th season.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't think he's thought about like that. I think he's, and it's not even just being underappreciated. I think it's just often just, not thought about, not talked about. And yet he's, he has a weekly show,
It's like the football equivalent of being an offensive guard who's just really good at being an offensive guard. And you don't really think about it too much because he does such a good job and he doesn't commit penalties and you don't hear his name very often. But when he leaves, you're like, damn, we really could have used him because they're getting a lot more penetration up the middle now on the defense. What happened? And in his 9 years, his OPS plus, his on-base percentage, adjusted for park and for everything else and for the league, has been over 100, over average every single year. And he's routinely the last several years 118, 119, 117. I mean, he's been a plus hitter in baseball for a long time now.
I'm willing to sell him the Chicago Cubs podcast domain that we currently have if he's interested in promoting his podcast.
There we go, Ian. Get in there. Make a business deal. Throw some coffee in.
The Cubs, after losing 2 of 3 at home to San Francisco, rolled into New York, where they proceeded to lose 2 of 3 again. The first game, the Cubs were tie-owned. The second game is the one that I want to talk about the most. It's the much-anticipated debut of Cade Horton. Coming up, he pitched 4 innings, giving up 4 hits, 3 earned runs, striking out 5. Kevin, your thoughts on finally getting to see Cade Horton here in the big leagues?
My first thoughts is that I really enjoy "tie-owned" as a verb. It sounds like an Italian swear when you say it like that. It's like it's very
usually is.
"tie-owned." I was watching Cade Horton's start on my phone in between doing shows in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is why I wasn't at my local ballpark here in Queens to watch the games this weekend. And I thought it looked great. I know it was, gave up the 3 runs because Brett Baty went nuts, but so good for him, I guess. But the velocity seemed really easy. And I know he only went, it was 4 innings, I think,
4 innings.
After the absolute dominant opener performance, which was pretty fun to see as well from Keller. But yeah, I thought the velocity looked really easy. I thought that obviously the slider's great. It was really fun that the supposed 2-pitch pitcher struck out Juan Soto with that changeup that looked really fun. That apparently
the only changeup of the game, right?
Yeah. I mean, well chosen, I guess. And Amaya said he shook him off to get to the changeup. So that's really interesting too. In his first start, that it was Horton who had a very specific idea that I'm going to throw this pitch for the first time to one of the most gifted base hitters of the baseball in history. And it worked. And I thought it was, we've all seen the numbers, I think, from what Horton's done in the minors this year, but just watching him, it looked fun. It looked pretty ready. I don't know how deep he's going to go into games, but I was left feeling really optimistic about him.
There were a couple things that I really liked from his performance. One was no walks.
Yeah, big fan of that.
The other is after the hit batter and then the catcher's interference call where he had men on first and second, which is kind of a chintzy way to end up having guys on first and second. He was able to get out of the situation, which was nice. He kept his cool, which a lot of young pitchers probably would not. And then after he gave up the 3-run homer, easy to get a little bit discouraged from that, but he immediately got Alvarez to pop out to end the inning. And then he came back the following inning when he knew he had Lindor and Soto and Alonso coming up, and he got out of that unscathed. So he bounced back, and I like to see that too after giving up the home run. So kudos to him. And can I just say that to me, the play of the game was probably, and I knew it at the time too, in the 8th inning when Miguel Amaya with 2 outs got that base hits driving 2 runs. I'm like, oh, thank God, because that 1-run lead felt really, really precarious. And as it turns out, the Cubs needed that hit in order to win the game. And I think we'd be feeling a little bit differently if we were looking at a 1-5 record, saying that ever since the implosion in the extra innings against the Giants, we were unable to win a game the rest of the week. That would be concerning. So good on Amaya and also the Cubs bullpen for holding on by the skin of their chin there.
Yeah,
Porter Hodge with the big 9th inning.
Yeah, and talking about Ian Happ being overlooked, it's easy to overlook Amaya so far too, just with how ridiculous Carson Kelly's been. But man, we went from just absolute nothing catching situation to just a really fun duo right now. Like it seems like all the pitchers really enjoy Amaya. He seems really solid defensively, and it seems like he's sort of settled in offensively enough, not Carson Kelly levels, but he's been, he's been perfectly good, like a really great, I guess what's turning out to be sort of a 1B catcher situation right now, but he's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't like what I didn't like this weekend was learning about this player named Batty, and I'm like, oh no, another one of these guys who's a Cub killer has just been an origin
with a
story.
Silly name, with a silly baseball-y name.
Was he just called up from the minors too, or something? I know he's been up and down.
Yeah, he was up and down because he was a pretty well-regarded prospect with them for the last few years.
Sure was. In fact, they wouldn't trade him to the Cubs a couple years ago when we were trying
for the PCA deal, right? Or like
maybe.
I'll take our side of that, I guess. But
I
know he was really well regarded. I think he was sort of ranked higher than Vientos, and then Vientos just hit the ended up coming up and hitting better last year. But I think he's sort of been shuttling back and forth, and then just played the game of his life in that game, which was to no avail.
Lucky us.
But yes.
Yeah. Well, Cade Horton, very exciting. But the question is it going to be enough with a starting rotation that no longer has Justin Steele, that is waiting for Imanaga to return? Do the Cubs need to go get a starting pitcher, Kevin?
I don't know. I feel like for the last few years, I've been constantly frustrated by the lack of ambition overall from this organization and the front office. And right now it's like, I don't know. I would, it's a corny cop-out answer, but I guess I'm not freaking out about needing another starter right now, because who knows how many innings Horton has. I mean, this year is part of it, which would lean you towards, yes, you need something, but also if Shota is back pretty soon, if Horton's up, if Ben Brown continues to be in the starting rotation, I don't know how big you have to go. But also, I guess something else that pushes you towards one more starter somehow is just like the bullpen's not figured out. Not that any bullpen's really ever figured out, but like you don't know how many innings you're going to have to cover there. I mean, Brian Presley, obviously historically bad outing, and then the peripherals were terrible not terrible, but they weren't great until that point. But he was successful in an objective sense, like in the things he needed to do up to that point. Now I don't think we can really count on it going forward so much, but it feels like we're in that position, which I hate, where it's like, oh, do we have to go get a number 4 starter somewhere? Like, I hate that. I would rather someone, I don't know, either someone who is going to be a playoff starter, or I guess see what the prospects have. How what do you guys feel like?
Well, I agree. I want a number 3 starter or better.
Mm-hmm.
Even when Suzuki comes back, who's the Cubs' number 2 starter?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Is it Boyd? I mean, probably Matthew Boyd, right?
If he's healthy,
who's been good,
he stays healthy.
If he stays healthy, and I'll be honest with you, Colin Ray has no business being, historically speaking, a playoff pitcher, right? Even as a playoff pitcher for the Brewers, for God's sake, why would he be for us? And so you really start to run out of options. Now, if Cade Horton turns out to be a star or a stud, great, that's helpful. But right now, with other young pitchers we brought up, like Wicks, seemed to regress a little bit this year.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. He was like, he seemed so particularly advanced 2 years ago, and then now isn't even getting outs in AAA. So
Assad's injury, we've talked about how much that hurt, because he would have been that 4th starter. You could just easily shuttled up. And then the Ben Brown situation, where again, gosh, I'd much rather have Ben Brown pitching the 8th or 9th inning of a game because
you've been a Ben Brown bullpen guy forever.
Yes.
We desperately need help in the back end of the bullpen, and Porter Hodge isn't going to do it all himself. And we saw him, he's imploded twice this year, but both times were really rough, including the Sunday game for the Cubs yesterday. So yeah, I think the Cubs do make a move, and so on the one hand you can say, well, the Cubs play 21 straight games against teams that are under 500. So maybe they can just skate by without a starter. But my thought is those are 21 games you can win. and I mean, I don't want to just tread water for those 21 games. I actually want to blow people out. I want to go 15-6. Ideally, that's a stretch where you could really just kind of put the division to rest, by before June starts, or God's beginning of June. That's what I want. I want to start dominating. I don't know. Maybe I'm overly optimistic.
No, we've been talking about how impressive of an April that the Cubs had. They came out of April with a great record against the toughest competition in baseball, and they had the hardest schedule coming out of that, and they exceeded all expectations. What you don't want to do is completely negate all of that by losing a bunch of games against the easier teams you should be beating. And you should be able to run up, like you just described, Pat, run up the division, because the Brewers have already played the Colorados and the Miamis. And so if the Cubs can come in here and build upon this lead by beating up on these teams, that you can't waste this. But we've seen this team in this front office for long enough that we are all hearing, we're all playing what this conversation is, and they're having the exact same conversation you just described of, well, maybe we can ride this out and maybe we can do this. And I just worry that they'll lose the gains that they made in a very impressive April.
And the second point to that, and Kevin alluded to it a minute ago, is that one of the issues that I'm worried about is how this bullpen is going to look in the second half, because our starters are going 4 or 5 innings a game. We are not getting deep into the games, and we're in May now, middle of May. And how many Cubs pitchers have pitched 7 innings, had a 7-inning start? I mean,
I can think of a Shota one. I can think of a Steele one, and that's gone. So that feels like it's about it. I mean, you feel like you would be able to count on, Tyone will pile up innings historically as we go here. But yeah, and also, with the guys we have in the bullpen, not all of them are optionable. So we can't even do the shuttle thing with, Tyson Miller, I think, is due back soon still, but once he comes up, he's not optionable, and then I think, I can't remember if Thielbar is or not, but we don't have an endless supply of names for that bullpen that we can actually keep all year either.
So hopefully the Cubs, we hear some news. The only news we had about players as we look ahead to the upcoming schedule, Cubs play 3 at home against the Marlins, and then 3 more against the White Sox as they start this homestand. We were joking before we went on the air that the only news we saw was that the White Sox have cut ties with Gage Workman, so he's available for the Cubs to pick up again, which we avoided
have him get his revenge on the White Sox later this year for as he wanted to get on the Cubs. Man, just the phrase released by the White Sox in 2025 is just the for sale baby shoes never worn of small saddest sentences in the English language. It is beyond a professional decision. It is just a personal insult to be released by the White Sox of 2025.
Well, let's look ahead to this series. The Marlins first, looking at a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all 6:40 starts. And again,
classic start time.
Yeah, we've talked about how the Cubs don't play on Thursdays. That's their permanent day.
That's their off
here.
day. Thursdays and Sundays, really, but they do technically play on
They
Sundays.
technically play on Sundays.
Yeah,
Kevin, I did raise the point last week that the Cubs should forfeit their Sunday games so as to rest the arms in the rotation. I mean,
there we go.
Moneyball
Moneyball
any
baby.
worse as a result. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, I think it would be a 1-game difference at this point, one or two, but yeah.
Cantrell and Ray on the Monday game. Palazzo and Ben Brown on the Tuesday game, and Wednesday is Weathers and Tyone. As we look at the upcoming Marlins series, Pat, we'll start with you with the Marlins. This has to be 2 out of 3 at least, right?
Yeah, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. I mean, I'm one of those people who doesn't believe that you can predict sweeps, and the Cubs should never get swept by any of these teams. So you just plan for 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. And, as we saw with the Pirates, the one other bad team we played, we blew them out one game. We blew a game we shouldn't have. Poor defense. And then we beat Skeens. So 2 out of 3, right? I mean, that's how baseball works, right? So let's do that. Let's go 4-2 this week. And if we go 5-1, I won't complain. But I can only predict 4-2.
Well, and as Jeremy, as you were saying, this is the time when you have to really, create that separation and pile up those wins. It does make me think with the Marlins coming in that like the 2 years ago, that road trip to Florida, didn't we go 1-3 in a road trip, or 1-6 on a road trip? But several of those losses were blown games to Florida, and then you missed the playoffs by 1. So this is sort of like that stretch for us.
The Marlins have 15 victories. The White Sox have 12 victories.
I know we should go 5-1. We really should, right?
Really should.
Say that. You can't say that out loud because you'll jinx it.
So we'll the White Sox games are weird. When the White Sox come in, we no matter how good or bad the teams are, I'm always just expecting a split between those two teams, just because they're just weird.
Yeah, remember last year we swept them those 2 games at home last year, but they were bizarre games. It was the first game since 1976 where there was a home run on the first pitch and the last pitch of a game when we won in extra innings against them.
Yeah. I basically never have a good time with Cubs White Sox games.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Morel walk-off notwithstanding, I mean, there's been very fun moments in them, but I don't enjoy the process for the most part. And like you said, they are very weird. Was it a White Sox game where Diner Navarro hit 3 homers, or was that against someone else? I'm remembering when he went off. It's just always a bizarre time with them, and I always find myself pretty tense.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not a fun experience at the ballpark either.
That's mainly, I think, what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
I avoid going to Cubs Sox game at Rate Field. I'll go to games at Rate Field. I just don't want to go to Cubs Sox games there.
Yeah,
we were there for the Brzezinski game where he got punched out.
That's fun,
famously by Michael Barrett. That was a good time.
We were at the punch out game. That is correct.
Yeah, that was fun. But just like the Wrigley ones, even like last year, I ended up going to one of the 2 games because at the last minute somebody said you have to take our tickets and go. So my wife and I went. Ended up spending like an inning getting like somebody removed from the stadium, which I hate doing because it takes a lot for me after 1,000 games to have somebody removed. But certain topics should be off limits. Screaming out loud at the top of your lungs to players on the field.
Yeah, it is. This is a reason why I just don't go to like away NFL games anymore because like I almost got in an actual physical fight with like a lonely old man who tried to trip me down the stairs at a Giants game at a football Giants game. And like it's just I'm not scared of these people or these White Sox fans in this instance, but it's just like I'm too old to have this unpleasant a time and to just like listening to it, and it seems, I certainly have my rankings of the most unpleasant fans I've been around. I don't have the White Sox number 1, but they've specifically in the White Sox Cubs games, they're approaching Mount Rushmore at least.
Let me deviate real quickly, Jeremy, on that topic because I wanted to bring this up. I noticed this week. Have you noticed that the Dodger fans are becoming complete a-holes? Like
they've been up there for me.
I was gonna say, is this new?
But it feels like they're getting worse, right?
That would make sense because I think the Dodgers now is allowing the people who have the Laker fandom of their DNA to sort of like transfer that to like, we just win all the time. I haven't been aware of it in a long time, but I just consider myself to be gifted championships from God. We're the ones people are supposed to be talking about all the time. So it's Lakers fandom, which I feel like the Dodgers didn't really equal them in terms of professional success in a lot of like the past several decades. But now it feels like it's really, it's now a cohesive bit of awful fandom. And
like on ESPN, you see fights. They're fighting with everybody everywhere they go. And they tried that little parade down Park Street.
Oh.
That was so fun with the results.
How many wins did that
really
lead to?
Good
those
time.
2 games. That was a 0, right?
And I didn't see the TikTok account with their marching out of the stadium.
Marching out.
I would have really enjoyed that.
I don't remember them sounding so loud or hearing them chirping when I was at the Montero 2016 NLCS game, because it was so loud in the stadium with the Grand Slam that we couldn't really hear anything.
Moments.
I will say the Dodgers fans have to be loud, because if you've ever been at that stadium, it's the loudest like sound effects and music in between every pitch
so
I've ever heard. It is the most horrendous, like, just I think it's like ADHD is not contagious, but I think they're causing it. Like among people with how loudly they play everything within their stadium. So maybe they're just shouting.
Down. Yeah, it quiets down by the 7th inning, though, doesn't it?
Usually? Oh yeah, it gets the parking lot's a little louder. But inside the stadium's pretty quiet.
In the year 2013, Dioner Navarro hit 13 home runs. 3 of those were against the Chicago White Sox at Wrigley Field.
There we go.
You were spot on, Kevin.
Yeah, it's just weird times, man. It's always a weird time.
So we are. So we'll lock in our official predictions 4-2.
Yeah, Do you do a consensus or individual? Okay,
individual.
I'll say 5-1.
5-1.
Someone who I've always put every time I legally could find a way to, I've bet on the Cubs to win the World Series at the beginning of a year. Last year was the first time I ever bet on the Cubs for the under of their win total. I just didn't believe in it, and it's the first time I ever did that, and I won. This year, I just think they're actually good. I just think they're actually pretty good. And I didn't buy when we had a very similar record last year. I think even with the injuries, I'll say screw it. I'll say 5-1 this week.
Love it, Pat.
4-2.
4-2.
That's all I can do. Right. That's all I can do.
I'll support Kevin with a 5-1. I'm going to agree with that as well. I'm pretty.
The penalty for guessing incorrectly is terrible. So
I'm pretty bullish on this. The one loss will be against Miami. I see a sweep of the White Sox.
It's my least favorite organization in baseball. They should be contracted. Absolutely, it will come from Miami. I feel the same way.
The Colorado's given a chase for their money, even though Colorado's a much more enjoyable place to go to a game.
Yeah. I find the Rockies less personally distasteful than the history of the Marlins and everything about them. And that's the thing. We've got the bad history where we were defeated by those clowns. And if you've been there, like I went there the first year they opened their new stadium, a couple of years ago, and there were like 7,000 people. It was in April. It was a beautiful night, like 90, which is for their like temperate. And there were like 7,000 people there, and they're playing the Cubs. I think 5,000 might have been Cubs fans. I mean, the place was just empty, and I'm thinking, this is the first year of your new stadium, and why do you even have a team? Why they just shouldn't have a team? They just shouldn't. Yeah. I'm sorry to the baseball, a great baseball community in history, but it's not about the Marlins, and it never has been.
That stadium would have been better if they just made it a park for the public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it virtually is, I guess. Yeah.
They're more malicious, directed at both their fans and their organization, whereas the Rockies are more just incompetent and just like they're just bumbling Rockies. And like making mistakes constantly.
Which is a significant and important difference, because in terms of my anger with our favorite team, like for decades, I just believe they didn't know any better. Like they're just dumb and bad at this, and I love them anyway, and that was fine. My anger peaked in the last several years, where I felt it was a conscious choice to not be better, even though they did know how to be better, and that I think deserves a greater wrath. So I think the Rockies, they're just very dumb. They're just the few teams have ever been dumber than the modern
All I can
Rockies.
tell you, if Kyle Tucker signs with the Rockies in the offseason, take the under on his career. That'll be the last you ever hear of him.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, let's as we move towards the end of this podcast, this is the part of the show where we profile a Cub player from the past. And every week we let our guest choose who we will be previewing and profiling next week. So, Kevin, you can choose who our player is going to be. We'll come to you at the end after the player profile this week. This week was chosen by last week's guest, Paul Noonan, and he chose Vance Law Pat.
If you're of a certain age, you remember Vance Law. If you're not, or if you blinked, you might have missed him. But here we go. Ready? Born in Boise, Idaho in 1956, just 1 year after Pope Leo, or Father Rob, as we call him here in Chicago. Drafted in the 39th round out of Brigham Young University by the Pittsburgh Pirates. And so I was thinking about 39th round. They don't even have 39 rounds anymore, right? They stop at 20 or 25 now, I think. I'm like, how did that happen? I think it may have been as a favor. I think this was a Mike Piazza type scenario, because his father, Vern Law, played for the Pirates for like 13 years and was an all-star, won the Cy Young in 1960, the same year that Father Rob was a first grader at St. Mary's here in Chicago. And so I think, and he'd been a coach for them. So I think that was just one of those, like, I think Kenny Williams, they drafted his kid in the 40th round 1 year. And, Piazza was drafted because La Russa, he was La Russa's godchild or something. I think that might have been what happened. But as it turns out, Vance Law actually was able to overcome the odds. I looked at the odds. Do you know what the odds are? So if, the baseball drafts are an uncertain thing. If you are a first round pick, you still have a 73% chance that you will be in a major league ballpark in a uniform for at least one game, which is pretty good. 3 out of 4. I thought
that's a little better than I would have thought, actually.
Yeah. It's probably lower for pitchers, I'm guessing. The chance for a third round pick drops to 40%. It's not like the NFL where you expect your third rounders to either start or be quality backups. In MLB, 60% chance that you'll never see that person at Wrigley, if the Cubs draft him or anywhere. By the time you get to the 21st round, it's 7%. And they don't keep stats below that. So if you're in the 39th round, I feel like, you're the guy from the 39th round for that period of years there, for that 3-year window where you made it to the MLB. So good on Vance Law for doing that. And good on Vern Law too, by the way. Vern Law, unfortunately, he's still alive, by the way. He's 95 years old. His wife just
unfortunately
passed.
Still alive. The beef remains with old
Fortunately.
Vern.
Yeah. Vern, 95 years old. He and his wife were married for 73 years before she passed.
Oh my God.
73.
Wow.
Like, getting to 73 sounds good to me, but
yeah, that sounds like plenty to me.
Yeah.
I don't think they have like, oh, it's supposed to be silk for your 72nd anniversary. They're running out of stuff. They're just like Amazon rechargeable batteries for 71. We're having to get too specific.
Yeah. Well, our friend Vance Law debuted with the Pirates in 1980. Played there for a couple of years, went to the White Sox for 3 years, went to the Montreal Expos for 3 years, before signing as a free agent with the Chicago Cubs in 1988. He had been a career semi-starter, mostly backup, but he'd had a couple decent seasons. He was third baseman. So when he came to the Cubs in 1988, I personally did not have a lot of high expectations. I remembered him as an Expo because the Cubs played the Expos 18 times a year back then. And I do remember him as a White Sox because, I collected baseball cards. I'm not stupid. And, he was on a couple of their decent teams too, as it turns out. So he comes to the Cubs in 1988. What I did not expect was that he would turn that into a, basically career year, right? He makes the All-Star team. Hit 293 with 11 homers and 78 runs batted in, 2.2 WAR. But he was one of 6 Cubs to make the All-Star team that year, which set at the time a Major League Baseball record. Now, remember, we'd had the Big Red Machine, we'd had the Yankees teams and the Dodgers. Never had a team ever had 6 representatives in an All-Star game until then.
Did you say 88?
Yes.
That is bizarre.
The Cubs finished. I will get to the Cubs' performance in 88 next.
Yeah.
This was not 89. This was 88.
Yeah.
So do you want to guess as to who some of the other 5 All-Stars might have been that year?
Dawson.
Hall of Famer. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Dawson, I mean, had to be Sandberg.
Hall of Famer. Yes.
Lee Smith.
No.
Was
he
he
had been
gone by
traded the year
88?
before for Nipper and Schiraldi. So we no longer had Lee Smith.
That is
Otherwise,
a
we
great
had
law
another
firm.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Mero never did anything with the
Paul
Cubs.
Mero was an All-Star.
He was okay.
Wow.
He was
Okay.
quite good with the Cubs.
Yeah. All
Would
right.
have been Hall of Famer, but for circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things.
That's 3 Hall of Famers. Just
Yeah.
while we're keeping track.
Yes. Did we say Dunston?
No, but he, as we showed
Last week.
on last week's show, yes, he made the All-Star team that year too.
Okay.
And there was a pitcher who made the All-Star team from that 88.
Sutcliffe.
No, but he was very good and on the team.
I mean,
Another
it was
Hall of Famer.
Maddox.
Yes.
Okay,
Wow,
Maddox made it.
okay.
I didn't realize
So-
he made it that early.
So how many Hall of Famers are we at now? Like 4?
4.
There was one other Hall of Famer on the team, our closer, Lee Smith's replacement.
Goose
Replacing a Hall of
Gossage?
Famer.
Was he
Yes,
over?
Goose Gossage.
Okay,
In
yeah.
the worst year of his 23 or whatever year career.
Oh, that absolute dip. Yeah.
The Cubs
that
had
is-
3 consecutive Hall of Fame closers in Suter, Lee Smith, and Rich Gossage. I think Dave Smith might have broken the. Mitch Williams was the next one the following year, and that put him up. But
Still pretty
yeah,
fun
so
and
that-
spicy, closer wise, but yeah.
so the team that had the 6 All-Stars, including the 4 Hall of Famers,
Mhm.
5 Hall of Famers, basically, if you count Palmeiro, also had the player who finished 2nd and 6th in the Rookie of the Year that year, but did not make the All-Star team because they were too new. One, Mark Grace at first base, and Damon Berryhill, the catcher.
Oh wow.
So every Cub either finished in the top 6 in Rookie of the Year or made the All-Star team among the starting lineup, with the exception of the center fielder Davey Martinez. He was up to other trouble at the time. And the pitching rotation was Hall of Famer, All-Star Greg Maddux, soon to be former Cy Young winner, soon to be or just missed Cy Young Award winner Rick Sutcliffe from 87, as well as Jamie Moyer, who pitched very well and
Sure.
was emerging and ended up winning like 250 or 270 games over the course of 40 years.
Yeah.
They were all played on the same team, that group of people. And Vance Law was one of them, and he was an All-Star. So let's talk about that team. On July 4th of that year, when the All-Star bids went out and were announced, the Cubs were 44-36, 8 games over 500. Then you remember in 1988, August 8th of 1988 was the first night game at Wrigley. Fortunately, I feel like the Cubs peaked that night. And it was all downhill from there. They were over 500 heading into September before going 9-20 that month. And they finished the season incredibly under 500, despite having probably the most immense amount of talent for their record of any Cubs team. Maybe in the 60s they had some, but these are guys who are in their primes, right? These are guys who are good. I mean,
Yeah, such a weird collection because it's so many. A few of them are such short-term Cubs or hit it at like a weird point. But
like
yeah,
Sutcliffe and Dawson were coming off of Cy Young and
Right.
MVP seasons.
Yeah.
Maddox was, we had 6 All-Stars. This was
Grace
a
at the
good
very
team.
front. Yeah.
Yeah, and Grace. It's amazing. But getting back to Vance Law, he began the 1988 season with setting a Cubs record. Still stands today. The first 16 games of the season, he got a hit. 16-game hitting streak to start the year. It was a good sign. He's also famous for having set an American League record during his American League days. I think with the White Sox, he played the most innings at third base in a single game without making an error. 25.
Okay, that is one of those tricky records where you know what, that's probably not going to be taken away from him.
Not with the Ghost Runner, you ain't seeing nobody's gonna get to 26. How about that? So he also pitched 7 games. I always am very critical of using position players as pitchers, but he threw 8 innings with a 3.38 ERA, so I'll give him a pass for that. He is also one of 4 Cy Young award-winning sons to play, all of whom have played in our recent lifetimes. We knew their dads and their sons, sadly enough. Can you take a wild guess as to who any of them might be or who their dads might be?
We got Kobe Clemens, right?
Yes, Cody Clemens. That's one.
So that's one.
Vance lost 2, so you got 2 now.
Vance lost 2.
Yeah. Another Pittsburgh Pirate.
Draybeck. Kyle Draybeck.
Yep, Kyle Draybeck
was in there. Sure.
And then the guy who beat out Rick Sutcliffe for the Cy Young Award in '87, and really still to this day ticks him off because they gave it to a closer as opposed to Sutcliffe when Sutcliffe deserved it.
Ooh.
Played for the Phillies, the dad.
Yeah, that's stumping me. Because I was going to say, God, there's a couple of weird 80s relievers who got in on that Cy Young.
Yeah.
Like Willie Hernandez was
that was in '84, former Cub.
Yeah.
Who also won the MVP and the Cy Young for just ridiculous. He just had this amazing year. He was won Steve Bedrosian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cam Bedrosian, right?
Bedrosian. Yeah. So those are the 4, including Vance Law. Vance Law was a trendsetter. He was the first of 4.
I mean, it is amazing showing the ability of baseball to be sort of nepotistic and diminishing returns with these children on the mound, at least. Some of the bats have been better, but and
I was surprised that Steve Trout's dad, Dizzy Trout or whatever, did not win a Cy Young, but I guess not.
But it's Trout was Trout is amazing, so
right. So anyway, Vance Law, unfortunately, in 1989, only hit .235 with a negative WAR. That was the year the Cubs actually did make the playoffs with a weaker team than the year before. He ended up getting supplanted late in the year by Luis Salazar, remember, at third base, who hit like .325 and went nuts. But even before then, the Cubs had been using Curtis Wilkerson quite a bit at third, so the writing was on the wall for Vance, unfortunately. And after the '89 season, the Cubs let him go. He promptly went to Japan due to high demand, where he hit 29 home runs and hit .313. Good for him. And from that bounce back season in Japan, he went to the Oakland A's in 1991, where he finished his career in short order. And that was the end of his playing career. He then went on to become the head baseball coach at BYU for 13 years, was named coach of the year, head coach of the year in the whatever BYU's baseball conferences. I forget. It's like
used to be. I mean,
it's
not
the WAC
West now, right?
Mountain West. Yeah, I think it was the MWC, the Mountain West Conference. He coached in the minors for Cleveland as well as for the White Sox, off and on. And over his 11-year career as the 39th pick in the draft, he had hit to .256 with 71 homers and 442 RBIs. But the fact that he played 11 years in the majors, in and of itself, I mean, that's like pension time. Like that's good.
Hit that 10, right?
Yeah. So good for him, and thank him. I'd like to thank him for having his best year with the Cubs, unlike most players who choose to have their worst year with the Cubs. With his magical 1988 season on one of the most talented powerhouse Cubs teams of my lifetime.
A talented, powerful flop. Yeah. That I mean, that could be a Cubs category.
That won like 74 games or something.
Yeah,
something like, yeah. So that is the tale of Vance Law.
Hey,
Kevin, it's up to you now. Who next week should we profile?
As between a couple names, we did just reference one of them, so I'm taking him out of the running and going with a slightly deeper cut, but one that thematically relates to one of our topics today, I think, and one of my favorites when I was a teen. I'm going to go with extremely exciting, promising center field prospect Corey Patterson. I'm going to go.
I started writing. I wrote the word Corey down before you even said center field. So
yeah, because we're talking PCA, and the last time I think we had that kind of a player at that position with that kind of promise was Corey Patterson, who, God, I was so all in on Corey Patterson. I love that dude. That 2003 season was so exciting. Until I remember being in my college house and watching him blow out his knee on first base.
I remember I walked into my parents' house on Burling, Jeremy, as you recall.
I remember. Yeah.
And I had been there for like 5 minutes, and my dad had the game on, of course, because it was like an afternoon game or whatever. And I watched him at first base, trying to beat out that hit and get hurt. And I thought, well, he's probably just maybe he just twisted his ankle or something. Of course, your thoughts are, oh, this won't be that bad. Or it's right before the All-Star break. He was in the running. He was one of the alternate vote. When they had that game where you voted for the alternate or whatever, the last player.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was one of the people for that. And of course, he never played again that year. We had to deal with Kenny Lofton instead. So I won't, that's pretty good, but
yeah, fantastic one. But yeah, I think that was the last time we had some sort of PCA promise in this exact sort of profile and way. So I'll throw Corey Patterson at you guys.
And I won't give you my other favorite Corey Patterson moment because
save it.
I have to save it for next week.
Yeah,
for next
week. I'll tune in. I'll catch it then.
Yeah,
Corey Patterson's great because he was the first position player that you were tracking his minor league progress.
Yeah,
right.
In the non-Pat Klein division of that era, deep cut catcher. I hope he's doing great wherever he is. But yeah, he was the first one that seemed like, oh, he might really, he might be legit because obviously Kerry Wood was. But then, yeah.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. We will profile him next week. In the event that we ever don't have a guest and we need to pick a player to profile, of course, we'll turn to our patrons over at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. There, we will have our patrons select who we will profile, and that's because they support the show. They keep us ad-free for another season. So everyone who's freeloading right now on the podcast, thank our patrons over at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. Every single penny goes right back into the show, pays for hosting fees. Got Pat a USB dongle, continues to...
It's great.
So anything we need to keep the show going. Yeah, so it helps us keep the lights on and helps us stay ad-free so we don't have to annoy you with bad ads. So please help us keep the lights on over there. Every single dollar helps us, so we appreciate it. And if you can't support the show financially in these times, we understand that as well. So just make sure you head over to our YouTube channel. The video version of this podcast is over at youtube.com. Search for Wrigleyville Nation Podcast. Likes, subscribes, all that helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And, of course, stay subscribed to the podcast in the audio version if you prefer. We're on every podcatcher of choice. If your podcatcher happens to be Spotify, you can hear the audio version and also see the video version also up in the same Spotify player. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for us. Kevin, remind our listeners how they can find your work on the internet and how they can see your comedy.
Just follow me at Kevin McCaff on everything you got, whatever it is, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of those things. I'm just at Kevin McCaff. Always posting a couple new videos a week over there, and all my dates coming up. I think upcoming ones. I've got Montreal. I've got some Pennsylvania. I've got some. Got a really great club in Arkansas, actually, in near Fayetteville. That's actually a really good club in June. So I'm all over the place, but yeah, just follow me at Kevin McCaff and catch me out there.
You can follow us on all the social media platforms as well at Wrigleyville Nat. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.